We start fighting. I hear that hot pot sizzling. I grab it, and at the time, my thought is to douse him in the face with boiling hot water.
How does a Kentucky woman like your mom form a relationship with the cartel?
End up stabbing one of them pretty good, cut him up pretty good.
So you and your friend have this great idea to shoot each other with bulletproof vests on. Johnny Ellington grew up in Kentucky surrounded by drugs. His mom was moving product for the cartel. He eventually got involved himself in cooking meth, battling years of addiction, and going in and out of jail before spending years behind bars. In this episode, Johnny shares how he broke free from that life and turned everything around. Johnny, welcome to Locked In. This is our second redo because I unfortunately messed up. The audio files didn't save properly when you were here. When were you here? In February or January? January, yeah.
Yep,
You and your wife came out here and I met you guys. It was an incredible interview, but the audio wasn't there. And I feel so bad because when I was editing all the clip or the episodes before I left for Beast back in February, it was like 2:00 in the morning and I realized I didn't have the audio. So we had to scrap and I left them a note. You got to reach out to Johnny Ellington, let him know what happened so he doesn't think I canned his episode or something. So now here we are months later and so happy you could be here and you got to meet our new studio pup, Bella, who we just adopted today.
Yeah, no, she's amazing.
Yeah, the audience will already see her on Instagram by the time this episode comes out. We got her at Dawes in Bethel today. That's where I got my first dog, Boone, when I got out of prison back in 2019. But she's so sweet. She doesn't bark.
Hasn't barked one time.
Yeah.
Not even once in a whole hour or longer I've been here.
She's happy meeting everyone. Got her a bunch of toys. Got her a little bed and stuff. So she's so cute. She's 4 years old. She's a Jack Russell Terrier.
No, she's amazing. She's beautiful. She's sweet. It's made my wife super happy to give somebody or a dog out there to play with while we're here and while we're doing this. So yeah, it's been amazing for sure. And
definitely.
We're super happy to come back.
Yeah, you guys are good people. I want you to tell the audience the podcast you guys started since we've met.
So it's called Shut Up Amanda. It's just me and my wife talking about everyday life, marriage, redemption, sobriety, the backstory of how we met. That's going to be our first episode is where and how we met and what the very early days of kind of like two people early in sobriety meeting and what that was like and how the world told us it would never work because, two drug addicts, early in sobriety meeting generally doesn't work. But I always say we're the exception to that, and other people can too if you do what's right and you work hard at your relationship, and then also just you add in work and kids and just life in general, and just showing the fun and funny side of what it's like to work together. We're together 24/7 every day. We ride to work together. We're never apart, and so just showing the world that people can do that. I would say 99% of people say, I could never work with my wife or I could never work with my husband and be with him all the time. But, some of us enjoy that. And, so that's what we're going to do. Just talk about life and have a good time while doing it. And it gives us something to do. And, when you don't have any kids at home anymore, you use their bedroom as a podcast studio. So that's what we did.
Where did you grow up, Johnny?
I say Waco, Kentucky. My wife says Richmond. They're both in the same county. It's Madison County. Richmond's a smaller town of about 40,000 people. Waco it's I guess a sub-community of Richmond. I don't even know. There may be 1,000 people there. But Waco has a fire department, a post office, and a zip code. So therefore, it's a city. It's its own place. And so I always say that. But even people from Kentucky 30 minutes down the road where I'm from will say, where are you from? I say Waco, well, they think Texas. Or if I say Waco, Kentucky, even they're like, oh, I've never heard of it. And it's 30 minutes down the road. So my wife just says, just say Richmond. People know where that's at. They know what it is. Just say Richmond. And I refuse to say it, but still, yeah.
What was your upbringing like?
Well, that's there was a lot of variables, a lot of changes. So I'm the oldest. I have a younger brother that's 4 years younger than me. When I was born, I had a completely different last name than I have now. And then when I was about 5, my mom had got remarried, and they changed my name to Ellington. So then I had a stepdad, but also thought this other guy who was my original last name was my real dad. And we lived, my mom was always a stay-at-home mom from the time I was probably 4 or 5. and my stepdad worked, just normal life. I thought life was pretty good. I remember a lot of partying at different times. I remember certain smells that I thought people were smoking cigarettes when I was a kid, and never put those together. I come from a really big family. My great-grandparents, who raised my mom a lot of the time too, they had 10 kids, and then, those kids have, so I've got tons of cousins, tons. But my mom actually has, one sister and two brothers. My mom was also the oldest. And then, so just always around family. A lot of my family, I would probably say most of them are, either partied or partake in some type of illegal drugs or something. But then I've got a lot of other family cousins, my aunt that's successful, and I've got cousins that are, a judge. And, so there's some really successful people in part of my family that have never done anything wrong. And then there's the complete opposite. So I would be around and see completely different ends of the spectrum growing up, depending on kind of who I was around. But then when I was about 8 years old in third grade, my stepdad got a better job, and we moved into a bigger house, and life was still just pretty normal. My mom started going to church at that time, and so life became like pretty strict of every night there was a church open, we were going, which caused me to kind of resent religion in general, because as a 9, 10, 11-year-old kid, I didn't want to be at church 6 nights a week, But then I think around 6th, 7th grade, my aunt, my mom's aunt, had got sick and passed away. I remember that happening. And then my mom just kind of spiraling because of that, started drinking, just staying gone for days at a time. And it was just really a lot of chaos. And then me and my friends started drinking in like 7th grade, and my mom just didn't say nothing about it. She would find the alcohol, and, we had a party in 8th grade, and, we were all drunk. My mom's there. She had just kind of completely broken down. And back then my friends thought I had the coolest mom in the world, because we could do whatever we wanted at my house. And there was a lot of times I resented my mom because I'm like, you're drunk, like you're acting like a fool. And I was being embarrassed of her, even though my friends thought she was super cool. So I started drinking, I guess, that around 11 or 12. And then still just kind of progressed into that, just going to school. I was still making good grades, still showing up to school. And then when I was 14, I started smoking weed for the first time, smoked it by myself, got it off a friend's brother, went to out back of a house all by myself and smoked it. I just wanted to finally try it because a lot of my friends had already been trying it, and I just kept saying, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Finally, I just tried it, and I liked it, and so I kept doing that. But when I was 14 or 15, I went on vacation with my best friend to Panama City, and when we come back, my mom was gone, and she had took everything out of the house. And so she had left my stepdad at the time, who I called my dad. I had his last name, And when she left, she took it all. And then I found out, I called, tried to get a hold of her. I find her, and she's with this new guy who only had one leg. I called him Peg Leg Greg. And then I started finding out after being around him that he was super abusive to my mom, like would beat her up all the time. I mean, held her hand to a hot stove one time and burned her hand, and was just super violent. And at the time, I couldn't understand. I'm like, Mom, he's got one leg. Just knock his leg out. Like, boom. Like, he's going to fall over. He can't walk, But my mom was so scared. And I'd never seen my mom scared of anybody. Like, I've seen my mom in so many fights with women. Like, she was always like this super badass to me because she really was. And then I seen this man just abusing her like she was nothing, who only had one leg. So I couldn't understand it. And I don't know if she had just been so broken down, and then, I don't know what happened there. But so we spent about it that year. Even once he pulled into my granny's driveway, my great granny, and my mom's mom walked out with a baseball bat while he was sitting in the car and beat every window, every headlight, taillight out of that car while he was sitting in it. And and then he finally left. But my mom still kept going back, and I just couldn't understand it. I don't know if it was because he got good pain pills from his only having one leg, or like it was just a really weird situation of why she would be with this guy, considering how big of a piece of crap he was. Next year, I go to Panama City again, come back. She had dumped Greg, and she was with the new guy, Ben. And he was actually really nice in the beginning, and really he always treated me good. He was just a really country redneck guy that, just was good to my mom at the time, And then not long after that, my mom's divorce was finalizing from my stepdad. And then I think she got around $350,000 from that divorce. And so during that time, they had made a connection to somebody within like the cartel in Mexico. So we were already starting to Mom had already started to kind of build this drug business. And it was kind of, I don't know, better way to put family business kind of, like my mom, my stepdad, and me. A lot of my cousins would be involved. One of my uncles, like I said, I had two uncles and one aunt that were direct siblings of my mom. My aunt never done anything wrong with her life. Retired from Walmart after 30-something years. Just amazing person. And then one of my other uncles who passed away recently, owned his own business, worked hard his whole life, drank a whole lot, but never really done drugs. Another uncle who's like the male version of my mom. Those two were been in and out of jail, and he's actually doing really good right now too, and has been sober for, I think 6 months now. But he was always involved too as my mom's brother. But when she got the divorce money, they found a connection, went down to like Brownsville, Texas, like El Paso, I think, Matamoros, all down through the Texas border of Mexico. And they started dealing with the cartel down there, bringing back like Xanaxes, Oxys, and a little bit of everything that they could get down there. And so that happened for a little bit. I got sent off to a boys' home when I was 17, and spent a little bit of time at a female, it was a female and male juvenile prison in Kentucky, and it was essentially what it was, a juvenile prison, and so spent a couple months there, went to the boys' home, graduated high school. Everything was, like I was just kind of trying to get through. I knew when I was 18 that I was going to come home. So I graduated high school, did that there. I knew this whole time while I was there that my mom and them was hitting Mexico hard, making these trips, and my mom was open with me, telling me what they're doing, yeah, we're going to Mexico, we're doing this, we're doing that. And so, I feel like I'm missing out on everything, right? At the time, instead of thinking like a clear person of like, oh, I'm glad I'm here, I'm glad I'm not around that, I'm wishing like, oh my God, I'm missing all the action, right? Like, and so it's the day I come home, which was the day before my 18th birthday. My best friend's waiting there on me, Nick, who's also passed away. And my mom had the idea then that, she wasn't going to allow me to get high or do any drugs. So I just give him my money, had him go buy it from my mom. We done the Oxy, and obviously my mom knew I was high because I hadn't done anything in 10 months. And, the next day it was back to normal. Like, she realized like if I want to do something, she can't control me. I'm 18 now. And so, and through all this, I always felt like my mom just kind of did the best she could. She did what she just either was kind of not coerced, but like talked into, like she was easily manipulated. My mom's the person that has a new best friend every day. If she's walking through the dollar store and she drops an ink pen and you pick it up, well, you're her new best friend. You're going to save the world, and she would trust you with her life because you give her little ink pen back. So she has always had a new best friend. And she always sees the best in everybody. You could be the homeless person, you could be a bank robber, and she's going to find something good in you that she can talk good to you about you. And which are good traits to have, to see good in people. But my mom does it to an extreme extent, to where she brings those people around the family all the time, her kids and whoever. And I'd be like, Mom, that's not a good person. They did this, this, and this. Yeah, but they did this for me, so they're good. But we just kept going down those lines. Mom had turned through the trips to Mexico. I never went to Mexico with them. My little brother did go with them. And, they turned that money that she got from the divorce settlement into probably a little over $1 million. And, that was selling, just a little bit of everything. But then, people started robbing us. My mom and stepdad would be up on meth for days and would pass out. On one occasion, they're passed out. My stepdad's sitting in a chair like I am with a gun under his hand. My mom has a mattress in the floor. And then my mom would keep all of her daily supply in a big tackle box like that fishermen would use. And then she would keep everything else like locked up. And she had to put all of her jewelry in that box. Somebody walks in. Somebody, we know now who it is, but they come in to, I think, make a purchase, to do something. Well, it was like an opportunity presented itself. They come in the front door, obviously didn't knock because nobody ever knocked on our doors where I'm from. Nobody knocks. Like, you just walk in. If it's somebody's house, you're welcome in. So I think they just walk in. They may have even tried to wake them up. Mom and stepdad been up so long, they were just not being woke up. And so I think they seen the opportunity. They knew what was in that tackle box, and they took it. That was $50,000, $60,000 there. They were going to casino boats, gambling all the time, losing money there, then just getting ripped off. And then they got busted in Brownsville, Texas with about 50,000 Xanaxes and some other stuff. The feds picked them up, lets them go on bond. My stepdad's out. He was the one that took the blame for everything. He gets out on bond, and then they end up raiding our house again. They were raiding my mom all the time. They would catch them at the casino boat and just shake them down, and at this point, nobody had anything on them because we knew what was going on, right? So it was a lot of kind of cat and mouse at the time. I remember even putting everything in garbage bags and climbing pine trees and hiding garbage bags way up in a pine tree just in case the police came, at night, and just always paranoid, And at this time, I just had the plan when my mom would say, what are you going to do with your life? You're 18. I'd be like, what do you mean, what am I doing? This is the family business. We're open 24/7. And it was, mom and them would work one shift. I would work the next shift, because a lot of dealers, they sleep, like you can only go, until they're in bed at night. But us, you could come anytime, day or night, whether if you wanted something like meth that was going to keep you up all night, we'd have that. But if you wanted something that's going to, a narcotic that's an opiate that you're going to sleep at night, then, we have that. Like, it really was a family business. And, as an 18, 19-year-old, and then I have a 15-year-old brother at the time that's seeing all this too, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Like, generally, I just thought this is where my life ended up. And, I seen so much money being exchanged and made that, it was just like, it was like watching Scarface or The Goodfellas or, The Godfather. And it's aspiring, that's what I wish I could have been. It was kind of like that, but not at that level, but still like, this is where I'm at. This is what we're doing. Like, I had tons of friends. I had tons of girls that wanted me because my mom, had all the supply of any drug you wanted. So, it was just like that feeling of, my mom would call people and be like, she never left to the grocery store because she would just call people, hey, go to the grocery and get me this, 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 and this. And then she would just exchange it for a pill, like we never had to do anything. Somebody always did it for us, like even before she left my stepdad, we had a girl my mom raised that lived at our house that pretty much done everything. She drove us to school. She cleaned our house. She cooked for us. She did everything for us. And my mom raised her. So just always having somebody do something for you, and it caused a sense of entitlement, like I said, my great grandmother and grandpa, like I also spent a lot of time at their house. Like they also helped raise me and they spoiled me too. So I always had this sense of entitlement. And then when we came into money, that just kind of grew even more like, I've arrived. I'm somebody,
Fellas, if your love life feels like it's stuck in first gear, I've got the turbo boost you've been waiting for. This isn't just about showing up. This is about showing out. And trust me, when I tell you about Blue Chew, you're going to want to buckle up. Guys, if your downstairs has been acting like it's on vacation, Blue Chew is the wake-up call it needs. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Think of it as taking your bedroom from a quiet indie film to a summer blockbuster. Blue Chew isn't just a tablet, it's like strapping a turbocharger to your love life. Stronger, harder, longer lasting, like your downstairs, just got drafted into Formula One. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. The last time I took Blue Chew's tablet, my girlfriend said, "Why do I hear an engine revving?" My main mast was basically doing victory laps, champagne spray included. This isn't just about performance, it's about putting your name in the record books. Give her group chat something to scream about. When you lay it down, they're going to talk about how it took off. Go create your legacy, or should I say your third leg-a-see, at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use promo code LOCKEDIN at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head to BlueChew.com for details and safety info. And big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. How does a Kentucky woman like your mom, in the kind of like the sticks, I guess you could say, form a relationship with the cartel?
So that's it's funny. So my mom's been able to do that. She's done it in Dayton, Ohio, with a gang up there. And my mom is very country, from the sticks, redneck white woman. And I remember once she went up to Dayton, Ohio, and was able to meet a huge dealer up there, not just a low-level, like, corner street dealer, but a dealer that could supply her kilos of cocaine. And she does that she has this way about her. Like, for one, she's not scared to approach people. She doesn't have that fear in her of, like, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? Are they going to think I'm the police or any of this? Like, she just goes about it. She goes about it. She's, knows how to talk to people. She's professional. With the cartel, a guy she knew told her where to go. And I'm trying to get the story right. Told her where to go. It was to a park. And told her to go there and ask for a specific person. When she goes there, she asks for this person's name, and the guy there told her he didn't know what he's talking about. I don't know if he was like security at this park or if he was, I'm not sure, but this guy around there. And she calls the guy back in Kentucky and was like, this asked this guy, he's like, just keep going back. And so my mom went back there for like 2 or 3 days and kept asking for this same guy's name. And finally, on the second or third day, the guy was like, follow me. And then ended up taking mom to meet the actual two guys, which their names was Omar and Oscar. And they had pet tigers. They had somebody that put their coats on over them, like fur coats. They had somebody that lit their cigars. That, like my brother, when he went, was like, you walk in the bathroom, they have somebody spraying cologne on you. He was like, it was real life, like walking into an episode of The Godfather or something. He was like, it was insane. Like, they ran this whole area, like, and I don't know how high up they were in the cartel, but they at least had enough power where they had, big cats as animals and had somebody, putting their coat over them and had assistance or security. And then my mom took a couple people with them once who were acting crazy, and they told my mom, like, take Tarzan back to the jungle or you see him no more. A cab driver ripped my mom off one time because that's the way we would get everything across from Mexico to America, was through cab drivers. And we would pay them $500, and you could, whatever you wanted, they would bring across. And then everything went good for couple years at that point, and then a cab driver ripped them off and didn't deliver. And mom calls them, tells them what happened, and then went back the next time. And mom was telling me that the one of the brothers put a pair of like old beat up shoes on the table, and she was like, "What are these?" Like confused, and he was like, "Cab driver, you see him no more." And so, like, obviously, you only have one assumption of what maybe happened to the cab driver, and who knows? Maybe he was just saying that to strike some fear, to gain some respect from my mom. I don't, nobody really knows, but that we know the message he was trying to send, of we took care of him, So, but my mom just never had no fear. Like, there was never, like, she was there for a purpose, and she had a mission, and she was going to accomplish that regardless of whether she's down in Mexico and there's these, huge cartels and drug dealers, or if she's up in Dayton, Ohio, and it's street gangs up there. Wherever she's at, she's always been able to meet the biggest drug dealers that can supply the most amount of drugs. And I don't know, like, seriously, like, I don't know how. Like, I've been in that game too, like, and it would take me much longer always to meet, the kingpins than my mom. She can somehow meet them and seems like walk into a random place and know them within 30 seconds, like, and point them out. Oh, he's the guy. Like, she just had that knack for her.
Was your mom the only one in your area that was dealing with people like the cartel?
No, maybe at certain times, possibly. But there's other times there was, another guy that was dealing traditionally all meth and was dealing with the cartel. He got robbed. My cousin went to prison for robbing him for, I think it was like 10 pounds of meth. And houses were getting shot up over that. Like, there was a lot of, one of my friend's grandma, I heard, got tied up, thinking thinking my friend had something to do with it. Like, there was a lot of violence going on over that one too. And then there's a few others, mostly meth though. I don't know many others that were tied in with the opiate and Xanax side of it. And then there for a while, like, we were doing that, getting that through some different people, but it was coming from Mexico too. So it would kind of evolve too. And like, that's the thing with my mom at the time, is like, we would sell whatever there was demand for. Like, if meth was what was really booming, that's what we would start getting, and, they would always do the opiates and the Xanaxes, but sometimes it would go from like cocaine, and then we would start getting that, or Xanax, or meth, and we would start buying a bunch of that. It was whatever we had people asking for was what we would try to get, right? Like, you want to be able to supply the demand. So we would do that. And then, when I was 18 or 19, the feds came back, arrested my stepdad. Once he was like, I think when he was indicted, they rearrested him. And so it was just me and my brother and my mom. And things started going downhill from, like I said, getting robbed. We were blowing money like it was never going to end. At that point, they weren't going back to Mexico anymore. There for a little bit, I think they were having a little bit of it delivered and having it shipped, but that only lasted so long. Money was draining, and with them, they will front so much stuff and give you so much on credit. But my mom was also smart enough to not get in that predicament, because that's one group of people you don't want to rip off and not pay, right? So my mom had some sense to not do that. But then we just kept blowing money, and this after that happening to where we were broke within like a year. My stepdad's in prison. We were completely broke, living in a little bitty apartment. And then I had my two sons' biological mom. We didn't have any kids yet, but she was living with us. One night we went, me and her got into a big fight, and I was trying to run up the stairs to get away from her because she was a little crazy, and she slipped going up the stairs. And when she did, she kind of fell, and her eye hit the corner of the stairs, which it was carpet, but it still hurt, and it left a little black mark on her eye. And we went to a pool room that night where her mom and her mom's boyfriend stayed at all the time. And we would go there quite often too. I would trade pocket knives up there with old men. So I would carry 2 or 3 with me and go up there and just, like trading them, for other knives. With a friend of mine that night, we're up there playing pool. I go up to the snack machine, and next thing I know, I've got 2 people with their hands around my neck, bending me over a bar stool kind of backwards. And they're yelling in my face. They're just going nuts, teach you to hit a girl. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, they had assumed that since she had a black eye that I give her the black eye. And I was like, yes, we were fighting. No, I did not hit her. She literally was running up the stairs chasing me and hit her eye on the corner of the stairs. Well, they're going off and they're threatening me and all this. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I need you to come get me before I do something I'm going to regret or things get out of hand here. So my mom comes, she brings my granny with her. My granny is equally as crazy as my mom, just not into the selling drugs and all that. And they both show up with my little brother, who this is when I'm 18, I think. And I'm walking out of the pool room, and then the 2 guys, which one was my kid's mom's stepdad and another friend of his. And I go on out to the car, and I was like, let's go. My mom and granny are like, nope. They get out, walk inside the pool room, and as far as I know, the first thing my granny says is like, where's the son of a bitch here that's mistreating my grandson? Well, they all stand up and we're like, well, we're right here, And the next thing I know, I see my mom and granny kind of walking out of the pool room, kind of slowly backing up. They're kind of getting surrounded. A bunch of people are there. There's screaming going on, yelling going on. And at that moment, I was just like thinking like my mom and my grandma. My grandma's 85 today. This was 20 years ago. So I think she's still in her 60s at this moment, And so I grab my knife, I open it up, I go up there, and the two guys like, let's get it on. And so the two guys that were holding me down and choking me over the bar stool, I end up stabbing one of them pretty good, cut him up pretty good. And the other one, all I remember is he had my brother in the corner of the front door of the van, and my brother had a hammer in his hand, and I'm telling him, like, hit him. But he got cut a few times too, and I don't even know how. And at this point, I'm just losing my mind. Like, I'm just going nuts. This is right next to the jail, the courthouse, the police station. Like, it's right downtown where I'm from. Like, there's all the city offices right there. And so the police end up coming. They obviously arrest me, and I'm staying there. I'm thinking, call the police. This was self-defense, in my opinion, because they were, I didn't know when they were going to attack my mom and granny. They take me to the station. They're telling me that, you're going to be charged with attempted murder, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, well, this isn't good. They end up waiting for the one guy to go to the hospital and see how much damage was done. Like, was his life really threatened? And they end up charging me with first-degree assault, which is still a Class B felony in Kentucky. It's still a 10 to 20-year charge. And then the other guy, they charged me with second-degree assault, which is 5 to 10, which I didn't even, like I said, he had some cuts on his arms and stuff, and I didn't even know he was cut. So I go to jail. My great-granny bonds me out, and we're waiting for court. We have court one day. I go hire a good lawyer. We go into court. My lawyer walks up to me, and I actually seen this lawyer at my restaurant a few weeks ago, and I asked him if he remembered it all, and he was like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. He was like, I thought you killed this guy. He walks up to me. He's like, I need to talk to you right now. And so I get out of the pew at court and walk over there to him. He's like, you need to be honest with me and tell me right now the truth about what happened to the guy you stabbed. And I was like, and I won't say the guy's name, but I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, he was shot and killed yesterday. And I was like, no, what are you talking? No way. He was like, yes, he was. And you need to tell me, like, did you have something to do with this? I was like, absolutely not. I don't even know what you're talking about. So evidently the guy who I had cut pretty bad had been carrying a gun after that. A lot of people said he had planned on doing something to me with it. But the gun fell. Somehow the gun went off, accidentally discharged. The gun goes off, goes up through his groin, and then kills him. So he does die. We go up in front of the court, and the other guy there was like, I just want to be done with this. And so they dismissed all the charges. The judge was like, there's no victim in this case. Like, if there's no victim, there's no case, right? The guy is deceased. So, in a lot of my story, I'll be telling how, like, whether you believe in God or a higher power, Ian, it's that I've been fortunate, lucky, whatever you want to call it, blessed, to be sitting here today when there's so many things that I've been through or charges that I've been charged with that should have had me in prison forever, right? So that's why I believe in second chances and believe in, a higher power of some sort that led me to be able to even be sitting in this chair today. But so I get by with that. It wasn't long after that ended up getting my first felony charge though. I got caught with I was high. I got caught with some methadone walking down the street. A cop didn't find them on me at first. I had them in my pocket, and then when I was handcuffed, I was able to get them out. And then with my hands handcuffed behind me, when the cops get me out of the car at the jail, I'm trying to throw them up from behind my hands and catch them on my tongue, hoping they would stick to it, and they just fall on the floor, look like a big idiot. And so I got charged with that. They ended up giving me 1 year on it, probation. That was in like 2004. And then at this time, my oldest son's born. He was born in November 2003. Still didn't change the way, did anything. As a matter of fact, right before he was born, I started shooting up. I started using a needle. I did it a few times before that, but never nothing consistently.
Why do you think you turned to that?
Well, the first time I ever did it, it was because I was broke, didn't have any drugs. The guy that did have them that I was hanging out with was like, yeah, I'll share with you, but you're going to do it the way I do it. And he had needles, and so I was always scared to death of needles. I would pass out just from getting a shot when I was a kid. But at that moment, when you're an addict and you want to get high, and he was like, yeah, if you want to take a shot, then you can, get high for free essentially, right? But you're going to do it this way. And I was just like, sure, And so that was the first time I ever did it, and then didn't really do it consistently. And then, like I said, when I was about 18, or 19, my son was born, and then I actually got on it a little heavier, just, moving from place to place, living with my great-granny. She always gave me a place to stay when she was alive. My grandpa had died when I was 18, so it was just her there. And so, life just wasn't good, wasn't doing anything productive, And then that year, my stepdad had got out of prison, and no. He went to prison that year. He got out a few years later. He went to prison in 2001, early 2002. He got out in like 2004. That was when I was like 20 maybe. But anyways, so 2003, my son was born. Would go back and forth with my granny or wherever we could find to go. And then 2004, we'd moved to with my stepdad where he's from, Jackson County, Kentucky, which is way up in the mountains, like one stoplight in the whole county, like nothing there. And I was on probation from the methadone charge. And so I moved up there with them. My stepdad was working at some factory, just him and my mom were trying to just kind of live somewhat normal. And so, but then they run across a few people here, a few people there. Well, boom, we're making meth now, And we had been making it like the year before that or a couple years before that. At one point, we had got into making meth because that was when the cartel stuff stopped and we were still trying to get high. And I met this one guy named Charles Kane, who everybody was like nervous around. He was like older, like in his 50s at the time. And everybody was super nervous around him, I noticed, like when I'd see him somewhere. And I was like, why is everybody nervous around him? People are like, he's a murderer. Like he was on death row and everything. And I'm like, what? So I started looking up, and sure enough, they I think it was People magazine or Time magazine did an article on him, called him the Walking Art Gallery because he was covered in tattoos. And he did commit a murder like in the 1960s and was on death row, was sentenced to death. And before he could be sentenced to death, Kentucky abolished the death penalty. And so they had to give him a life sentence. It changed his death row sentence to a life sentence. So he spent 4 years on death row. But when I met him, he just really liked me. And so he moved me and my son's mom in with him. And then my mom and my stepdad followed along. This was right before my son was born. And we were making meth out in the outbuilding, not in the house around my kid's mom, but it was in another building on the property. And we had a guy one time try to steal it, and we caught him. He was a friend, and Charles was just like, I'll just take him back to the barn out there and get rid of him. And he would say it with such just conviction and nonchalantly, like him killing somebody for stealing from him. You could see that was just, didn't think twice about it. It was just like, yeah, we'll just go get rid of him. And I'm just like, no, he's a friend. Like he did something real stupid, but we're not going to kill him for it, But he loved me so much, and I never asked him really why he took up with me. I was an 18, 19-year-old kid, but he just was so good to me. And the police come one night. I see them. I run like miles. I'm so high on meth. I go into this big thorn bush and I lick my hands and get my face and everything wet, and then I'm scooping dirt all over me, try to blend in like I'm in the movie The Predator, and I stay there till morning, and then I get up and I go find a phone, knock on a random person's door. They had to look at me like, what is going on? And I call the house and they're like, yeah, Charles, his girlfriend was like, he went to jail. I was like, well, I'll be back there in a minute. I walk in the door and I tell her, I'm like, I'll go up there and say it's mine, this cook wasn't actually his, it was his house, but the meth was mine. And she was like, he said, absolutely, don't you dare think about doing that. And I was like, okay. So a few months later, I went to jail for something small. I got put in a cell with him, and I thought he'd be mad at me. And, he gave me a big hug, and I was like, why did you do that? Like, why did you say that was all yours? Because they said when the police pulled up, he walked straight downstairs, walked out to him, and said, everything you find here is mine. And he said, I've spent my whole life in prison. Like, there's nothing new for me. You've got a kid on the way. All I want you to do is go be a good dad to that boy. And I was like, wow. Like, yes, he killed somebody. Yeah, he went on death row. Yeah, he spent his whole life pretty much in prison. But he still had empathy and care for me as a person and wanted me just to be a good dad. And he ended up getting out of, he took a 6-year sentence for that. And so where he was on lifetime parole, he had to do every day of it. So he had to spend full 6 years of that and did it when he could have easily been like yeah, it was his, or yeah, it was his, But he stood on that code of, you don't tell on people.
Just like predators in the wild go after the slowest prey, hackers go after the people with the weakest security. And if you're not using ExpressVPN, that's you. You're basically walking through the jungle covered in barbecue sauce. I use ExpressVPN every time I'm traveling or working on the road. I'm constantly uploading podcast episodes, sending contracts, and emailing guests. And the last thing I want is someone snooping on my Wi-Fi connection and stealing my passwords or private files. ExpressVPN gives me peace of mind that my data and my podcast are protected no matter where I'm working from. ExpressVPN is my go-to because it's crazy secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to crack its encryption. And it's so easy to use. I just tap one button and I'm protected, whether I'm on my laptop, phone, or tablet. It even works when I'm moving between hotel Wi-Fi and my phone hotspot. I stay covered the entire time. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/lockedin. That's expressvpn.com/lockedin to find out how you could get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/lockedin. So your family had left the drug game and then he kind of helped you guys get back into it?
Right. Like we hadn't left it. We were always still like hustling, just doing, trying to make $1 to get high, or trying to make $1 to just come up to pay bills, whatever. It just wasn't on the level that it was
when you were a kid growing up.
Right. It wasn't on that level. We were just, and so we just kind of met him through it. And then, he lived way out in the middle of nowhere. So we kind of seen that also. Oh, this is a good place to make meth. He likes me, I felt safe because then I found out his backstory. So I'm like, oh, this guy likes me. Like, this is cool. Like people aren't messing with him. Right.
How did you guys learn how to make meth?
People, hanging out with this guy, he had heard some stuff about it. And this is way before like smartphones, right? Like then this guy heard a little bit about it. And then, we would like research what we could, talk to different people. And a lot of it, like once I heard like, oh, this, you got to go up to Indiana and steal anhydrous ammonia out of, from the cornfields up there, and learned how to do that. And then you got to get Sudafed, learned how to do that, and would, lithium batteries. You learn all the different ingredients. And then, you would take what people were telling you as a recipe, and it was kind of trial and error, like I messed a lot up before I realized like, oh, if I do it this way, my yield is going to be way more than if I do it this way, And so we did that off and on, for that time, went to jail. 2004 rolls around, we move up to Jackson County. My stepdad's aunt had been busted in a big raid. And up in this county, imagine like Boss Hogg from Dukes of Hazzard. You got the good old boy system. That judge up there ended up getting a 35-year prison sentence as a circuit judge. Like it was so crooked. You could pay your way onto house arrest. You could pay your way out of anything, $10,000, and you were scot-free. So my stepdad's aunt paid. She had to leave the county for 5 years. That was her punishment, and she got caught with a large amount of drugs. So she offered us to go take care of her house. Brand new house. She had a pay lake on it, 100 acres. So we went up there, started living in the house, started making meth in the house. She had a bait shop, which it was just an old trailer that she used for her bait shop. And we were down there making meth, and this is in the middle of winter, 2004. Well, not the middle of winter, probably October. It was starting to get cold out. And down there we had a propane tank, and we had a heater in the room. Well, the heater, when it turned on, that propane was on, it caused it to kind of explode, started a fire. So it was me and one other guy in there. I run and grab all the other supplies, Sudafed and stuff we had. I run out. He gets the fire out, but at that point it had already started to burn this little old trailer. So we walk out and we just watch this trailer burn to the ground. It was so far away from everything, the fire department never come. Nobody ever showed up for an entire trailer burning to the ground. And so we just let it burn, and then obviously didn't call and tell nobody. So we're doing that. I end up moving. At this time, my son was born. I end up moving a few houses down with the girl me and my kid's mom had met, and was trying to get away from the making meth. And I was trying to, but I just didn't know what to do. Like, I'm in Jackson County, Kentucky. There's nothing here. And so when I do that, my mom and my stepdad owed me some money for something at the time. So I go up there one day, and we're sitting there, and I look out the window and I see cops coming. The driveway was a half mile long. If it had been today, you'd have been able to see them because you'd have had a camera up at the end of your driveway. Back then, there wasn't driveway cameras. I see them. My mom runs upstairs, which was where the meth cook was going on. And there was a big door up there that opened up to what would be like a deck or a balcony, but they hadn't built it yet. So it was just a door opening up to nothing. And she starts taking the meth cooks and just throwing them out that door and trying to bust them all. And the cops get in the door, and I tried to run for the back door, and the back door only had, you could only use a key to unlock it from the inside. So there wasn't a twisty knob. You actually had to have a key to unlock it. So I didn't have a key, so I was stuck there. So the cops come in. There were 7 of us there. They arrested all 7 of us for manufacturing meth. And my mom had stood up because they seen her up there with a lime green shirt on, throwing the meth out, the cooks out. So when they got us down there, she told them, everything's mine. I'll take the blame for it all. And they still arrested all of us. This is November 22nd, 2004. It was really cold this night. And they brought a hazmat truck and made us all get naked in the middle. This is 10 o'clock at night, and take an ice cold shower for decontamination under this truck, and then put on like a Tyvek suit. So it was embarrassing because your mom's there, other people are there, and I'm like, shit, this isn't good. So they take us to jail. Me and my stepdad, the jail they had there at the time, it held 35 people. It looked like Andy Griffith jail. It was real bars, skeleton key, opened the door. The jailer, it was him, his wife, his 2 sons, his mother-in-law. Literally, it was a family-owned and run jail. Not owned, but ran. And so I get put in there. I don't know anybody. I'm not from there. My stepdad is. But so me and him are in the same cell. I start kind of knowing the jailer and his family. My mom's in a cell downstairs. My stepdad's dad then gets put in there, who was an old man. He got put in there for something totally different. But so it's my stepdad, his dad, and me in one cell with 7 other people or something. And so we're just up there, and there I did have so many good memories in there with my stepdad and his dad, like so many times just laughing and having a good time. But my mom's downstairs, and the jailer would bring us 3 out every weekend and let us visit. And then my kid's mom was pregnant again at this time. So 3 weeks into being in jail, she has my second son, my youngest son. And she brought him to visit on the weekends. You could sit there and hold him it was not like a window visit. And, it sucked. And after, I don't know, a couple months, I call home, talk to her. She had this time had moved away from Jackson County and was living with my cousin back in Richmond, and which I felt comfortable with because I had family around my kids then. But then I get a call a couple months later. It's like, yeah, she got married. She ditched you and she's married to a new guy. So I'm like, what? So I start calling. New guy answers the phone. Yeah, you're nothing. You're in jail. I'm the daddy now. I'm there. All this. I'm like, obviously doesn't make your time in jail easy, right? And, I would have piles of ashes this big under me, just sitting there chain smoking while trying to dial the same number 1,000 times a day and nobody answer, right? It's not a good feeling. Then they offered me house arrest. I'm in there on a $50,000 cash bond for manufacturing meth. And the judge is like, yeah, we'll give you house arrest. No bond. You don't pay $1. You just pay house arrest. Sign your OR, signature, own recognizance, essentially. I'm like, what? Where does this happen at? Well, come to find out the judge owned the house arrest company. So, of course, he was giving everybody house arrest because he could charge you $300 a month, and he had 300 or 400 people on it at a time. So he would give every time, as soon as you was indicted on a felony, he would rearrest you, raise your bond to $50,000 cash, or let you sign yourself out and have house arrest. What do you think people are going to do? They're going to do house arrest, right? Like, they don't have $50,000 cash. So that was his racket, was raising your bond to $50,000 cash or house arrest, and you sign your name, an OR bond, And so everybody was doing it. Well, he ended up getting caught with that, I think, along with some other like voter registration, fraud, and going to prison himself. I had my own skeleton key to that jail because I ended up becoming the trustee. They only needed one, and it was me. And so I would go and deliver all the food. I did the laundry. But I remember sitting in court one day at a court date, and the jailer didn't have his key to go get more inmates out to let them out. And he had to come up to me in the middle of court and ask me for his key to the jail. So I had to pull it out of my pocket and be like, yeah, here you go. And it was one of those big, like, bronze skeleton-looking keys, like this big. And yeah, I always thought that was so funny that, you know, the jailer didn't have a key to his own jail and had to come and get it from me. But that's just how trusting they were and how, like, you know, just different it was there. It was like going back in time 50 years, you know, like, you know, Andy Griffith giving, you know, the drunk of the town his key, you know, like. So yeah, so that spent a year there. The jailer and his sons did make some phone calls to some people there to help me out. Like I told you, it was very, you know, you could get help there. I didn't have any money, but they made some phone calls and said, look, we'd like for, you know, you to help him out. And so they offered me a drug to plead guilty to drug paraphernalia, which is a misdemeanor. Probation officer told me if you plead out to a misdemeanor, I won't violate you. So when we go to court, my lawyer's like, I don't know what you did or what happened, but they're offering you a misdemeanor. And I just kept my mouth shut and was like, all right. So I pled out. I get out that day. My mom got 5 years. She goes to prison. My stepdad goes back to prison. And I go back home. That's the end. October of 2005 is when I come back home. And I go right back to doing, you know, what I knew, you know, living with my granny, trying to see my kids at this time. I'm fighting there. Every time I go around, the new guy's cussing me, threatening me. End up getting a fight with him, beat him up once, and then he starts making more threats. So then I get a gun, and I told him, you know, like, I don't care that you're with her, but you're going to quit saying you're my kid's dad. Like, that's what was really eating at me. Him saying, I'm their dad now. I see him pulling into this neighborhood as a trailer park down the road from where I lived. And I just pulled the gun out. He backed up, tore his passenger door off because it hit a fence post. Well, he goes and calls the police. When the police come, I obviously had no gun on me because I was a felon. And they take me to court, and the judge was like, you was in his territory. I know that he don't own that, but you know where he lives. Quit going where he lives. And there's no proof of a gun. So I didn't do nothing for that. But it just kept going back and forth. That was then 2006 comes around. I'm getting high. I'm working for my cousin doing construction, doing some Xanaxes. It's Friday the 13th, 2006. I'm looking. I'm like, well, something bad's going to happen today, right? You automatically think that on Friday the 13th. And then I'm eating Xanaxes. I'm drinking. Go to my next door neighbor's house, and we're all there just partying like we did all the time. Well, we got the idea to put on a bulletproof vest, and really, I got the bright idea. Let me put on this vest and let you shoot me. So there's some girls around. I'm sure I was wanting to impress them too. So I put on the vest, and my cousin was there. And so I was like, only he can shoot me. And so he's standing, point blank, right 6 inches from the vest, because these vests had metal plates on them too. And he shoot me with a .22 revolver pistol. And so he shot me 4 or 5 times. And you don't feel nothing because the plates are stopping you, but it's just an adrenaline rush like no other, right? Somebody holding a gun 6 inches from your chest and shooting, it's pretty crazy. So I take the vest, we go do some other drugs down the street. And at this point, I'd put on a hooded sweatshirt over the vest and come back. There's some different girls there. Well, the guy who lived there who owned the vest, I asked him to shoot me. Well, at this point, he's laying down in his bed that he has in the living room drunk. And he's pointing up at me. And so when I asked him, I was like, show him I'm bulletproof. Well, these 2 girls there had no idea. So he just shoots me once, fine. Second time he shoots me, I felt it that time. I was like, oh, that would hurt. I didn't know what was up at the time. And so I sit down, and at this point I'm thinking, like, this is off. Something's off here. And the girls are freaking out already, kind of like, what is going on? I take the hooded sweatshirt off. Well, they can see a vest. So they're like, oh, okay. And then I pull the vest off, and when I did, I could just instantly start seeing like blood kind of coming out my chest. That pressure was holding it in. I should have, it would have been better if I'd have left the vest on. But as I do that on, I had I'll never forget, I had an AC/DC t-shirt on, and the bullet had went right through Angus Young's head on the shirt. And I was like, oh my God, you killed Angus. And I took my shirt off, blood's coming out. They're all freaking out. They're like, let's get him out of here. And one of my friends there, who has been sober today. He's been sober for several years too. But even then, he had the sense to be like, tell this girl there, you're taking him to the hospital now. And so this girl did take me to the hospital. She kind of just dumped me out when she got me there. And so I was able to go in, and I told him I got shot in the chest. It was literally right here, right next. I still got the scar, right next to my heart. And they ask me what happened, and I tell them a couple people tried to rob me, and I wouldn't give them my money, and so they shot me. So I don't think at the time the repercussions of that statement, because then the state police have helicopters and search dogs and a whole SWAT team looking for, attempted murderers, right? So they're looking. Well, my mom and my family start to show up, and they're talking about it. They're like, Duck shot Johnny. It was an accident, blah, blah, blah. Cop overhears them. Was like, now what? Comes to me, Johnny, you got to tell me the truth. Was this an accident? And I said, I'll tell you if you promise that nobody gets in any trouble, I'll tell you the truth. And he was like, okay. And I knew this cop. He used to be a guard at the jail. And not to back up, but just like the first time I ever went to jail, I was 14 in high school, and I got in a fight and got a 2nd-degree assault charge as a juvenile, and that's what kind of led down my whole road of, that's when my mom had left my dad and me just like not caring about anything, from doing everything kind of good and to, I'm going to go get in a fight in the lunchroom at school and it, end up breaking a boy's jaw and done damage to him, and to just, this whole path of destruction, really. But
so this incident happened after your mom got out of prison, because you said your mom showed up.
Yes. So my mom. Yes, and I did the same thing last time too. Yes, she had got out on house arrest.
Okay.
Yes, so that was in 2004 is when we got arrested at the meth lab. My mom got 5 years, and this happened in early 2006. So my mom, I think, had just got on house arrest at that point of like early release or something. But my mom was definitely out. We got arrested November 22nd, 2004 for making meth. She got a 5-year sentence. And then January the 13th of 2006. So what's that, a year and 3 months or something? Or she made parole. That's what it was. Duh. You only do 20% in Kentucky. So in 5 years, you only have to do 12 months and you can get parole.
So you and your friend have this great idea to shoot each other with bulletproof vests on. How did he even get through the vest?
So that's what I was going to say. So the metal plates right here, the way he was shooting, what was around it wasn't full Kevlar from what I understand now. Kevlar is still bulletproof. This was more just a vest with the metal plates to protect your area here. And so when he was shooting at that weird angle, it hit the edge of the plate, and where it hit the corner of the plate, it caused it to go like this and then ricocheted into my chest. And so once the bullet hit the plate, ricocheted into my chest, went through my lung, collapsed my lung, and stuck in my back. And the bullet's still in my back today. They never did take it out.
But you could walk fine and everything.
Yeah, everything's fine. I went to the hospital after that, after the cops found out that nobody was in danger and that there wasn't some wannabe robbers out there. I was in the hospital for, 3 or 4 or 5 days, something like that. The first couple of days I could only use a sponge on a popsicle stick in water. And then they had to fix my punctured lung. But yeah, after that I was fine. I had some trouble breathing for a while there. I had to build my lungs back up, but I was fine. I come home, continued doing craziness.
So he kept his word and you didn't get in trouble for that?
Nobody got in trouble. That's what I kept going on. A few months later, I went to the friend's house that next door that shot me. I go in. And he's like, I got something to show you. He pulls up the vest and the gun. The cops give him both of them back, the vest and the gun.
Only in Kentucky.
Right. He had them both back. Yeah. And delivered both his vest and gun back. He gave me a few pain pills, at that moment to kind of celebrate the moment of him getting his gun and vest back. And so that day I was probably broke and was happy to get a few free pain pills for doing nothing except let him shoot me a few months before that. So
when your mom went to prison, did you feel kind of lost? Because that was your first time where you didn't have her as like the matriarch of the family running things.
Oh, 100%. When I got out of jail and she was still locked up, it was really different. I didn't have a person that I could, my mom, like I said, I feel like she's always done her best. My mom's, there's nothing I could never do to ask her for, like no matter what, and she would be there, even though sometimes people would disagree with maybe her parenting style or the way, she interacted with this drug business with me, and that's obviously not right, but not having that one person there that I could count on no matter what was definitely weird. I would obviously still talk to her and stuff like that, but it was different, and I didn't have somebody out there to, guide me or make money. I was having to do it all on my own then, you know? And so, but I got home, that was in 2006. April, I ended up violating probation, go back to jail. October of 2006, I get in a fight in jail over the TV of all things, like, you know, like that's something new. But yeah, I was wanting to watch a TV show. New guy comes in, and I tell him to turn the TV back to what I'm watching. He says no. I said, well, it was a UFC fight. And he said, if you don't show up, there's going to be a UFC fight in here. And I said, well, let's do it. And I'm sure you've seen hot pots in jail, like plastic hot pots that have a cord on them that you heat your water with. We start fighting. I hear that hot pot sizzling. I grab it. And at the time, you know, my thought is to douse him in the face with boiling hot water. And as I went to hit him with throw the water in his face, the cord hung in the wall and jerked to the wall. When it did, it came back and hit me. So a whole pot of boiling water hit me from my shoulder all the way down my arm here. Obviously, it's burning. It's boiling water, right? It's not a good feeling. We're doing this. As soon as that happened, I almost like just seized up. But we keep fighting. He gets me in a headlock, and I'm sitting there, and surprisingly, I stay calm. 3 of my good friends in that cell I was like, guys, I'm burnt. I'm hurt really bad. And he just got me in a headlock, just punching the top of my head. And I'm talking like this. I was like, I'm hurt. And they're like, well, you want us to jump in? I was like, no, but what do I do? And one of my friends said, you got teeth, don't you? And so I was able to pull my mouth back enough over his arm, and I just bit his arm hard as I could. And if you've ever been bit before, you know that there's no pain like it. And he just buckled. His knees just gave out. And when he did, he fell in front of me, kind of between my legs. And so I was able to put him in a rear naked choke. And because I couldn't move this arm, my left arm, because it was burnt. And so I put him in a rear naked choke, and I just choked him till I knew he was unconscious, because I knew I couldn't fight anymore after that. And when I got up, I pulled my shirt off, and all the skin from my arm, it looked like dried candle wax with the shirt, had handprints on this part of my arm from that choke where I'd squeezed so hard, and the skin had dried up with my hand around it, so I had a big handprint right there. At this point, they're beating on the windows. Guards are coming. They see how damaged I am. They take me to the hospital. I was in a burn unit for a couple of days on morphine. Got back to jail. They give me a prescription of Lortabs. So they kept me in. I was in the hole for like 10 days because they didn't want me in a cell getting narcotics. And so, but every time I would walk through, the whole jail would erupt. Like it was nuts.
I can't believe you started a fight over a TV show.
Over a TV show, right? Like, and it's like I wasn't wanting to fight. I remember like today I was playing cards, watching the show. I'd been waiting on this fight, and I had bets on this fight all night, like all week. And so this brand new guy comes in and was like, "You're playing cards. You don't get to have two things at once. You can either play cards or you can watch TV." I was like, well, I'm doing both. I can see the TV from this table. I'm doing both, And, a lot of it had, was probably my ego with saying, I have seniority. I've been here longer. You just got here like yesterday. Who are you? And then, you obviously just can't let somebody punk you in jail. Like that never goes good, just being like, oh, I'm sorry. You can have it your way. Like that wasn't going to happen, and then that one, ended up with bad burns from it. And the guards and everybody thought he poured it on me, and I never did tell him, that he didn't do it or that I did it. I just would, I would just be like, no, it didn't happen that way. It just got knocked into us, But yeah, it was bad. I had to, even when I got back to the jail, they had to put this burn cream on me every day. It was crazy. But then I ended up getting out. Right after that, getting out of jail like a month later, I think, serving that one out. 2007, I was dating a girl, smoked crack all year, just was shooting up, ripping people off. My stepdad at the time, my mom had got remarried again this time, and he was making counterfeit money, buying like 5 pounds of weed, 10 pounds of weed at a time with counterfeit money. But he would always get somebody else to do it, right? You always get like a flunky or a fall guy that's willing to do it. Usually a drug addict that is willing to take the risk, right? Hey, I'll split this with you. Take this, $10,000 and go buy as much weed as you can or as much coke as you can. And it would always work though. Like the bigger drug dealers were dumber. They would never check it or nothing. They would just, all right, here you go. It was crazy. But I was so just sick that year of just that. I don't even know how to describe it. I was just, like I said, smoking crack. I was shooting up every day that year. Like, I mean, just doing the worst I could do. It was not a good year. Not seeing my kids at all. Hadn't seen them in who knows how long. Wasn't being a good dad. Wasn't being a good anything to anybody. Really, I was sleeping on the side of the interstate in Richmond, where I'm from, because it was too far a walk to my granny's house to get anywhere. Nobody I knew was willing to come and give me a ride because nobody wanted to be around me. So it was just literally, I would, for like a week or two, I would sleep in the bushes on the side of the road. And then it was a really, really bad time. I think my mom may have been violated her parole and may have went back to prison during that time for a short time. Pretty sure she did. And then at the end of 2007, I'd went to bingo with my granny, where you just play bingo, bingo. My granny played it every night. And I went and I won the big game they have. It's called the Coverall, and I won $1,000. And the girl I was dating at the time, I went to her mom's house, and I remember, like, I'd already bought us a little bit of drugs, and, like, it was good night. And I remember going outside, and they locked the door on me, and were like, you're not coming back in. They thought I'd had my money inside the house, and they were going to take my money. And so I get back inside the house, and when I get back inside, the door was already kind of messed up because they lived in a really bad neighborhood anyways. The door was already kind of messed up. I get back in, I grab the rest of my stuff I had there, and I leave. Well, they call the police, and they say I kicked the door off the hinges and all this stuff, right? Well, the girl I was dating, she had bought me, it was right before Christmas. It was December 11th. She had bought me a hunting knife that day, and I had put it on my belt loop, and so it was on my side. Well, when you enter a residence not wanted and you have a weapon on you, it's first-degree burglary. So that's a 10 to 20-year charge. Well, when they arrested me, they enhanced it with a PFO, persistent felony offender, so that makes it a Class A felony. So they arrested me on Christmas Eve at my brother's house, and front page of the paper, Richmond man faces a life sentence. So because of the charges, I was facing a life sentence. Never touched anybody, didn't steal anything, just my money that I won. That was it, and that's all they would claim. So I go to jail. I'm sitting in jail facing a life sentence. They come to me and offer me 20 years. I say, no, absolutely not. A few months later, the girl I was dating at the time, because the night the police come, she hid in a closet because she had a warrant for her. So she didn't even give a statement to the police. Only her mom did. And so she gets put in jail. We start writing each other. And I was like, hey, like, can you sign an affidavit for me saying that I did not pull a knife on nobody? It was just on my side. And that I was invited there that day and that I did not kick the door in. So she does this, willing to testify, saying she's willing to testify. And the prosecution sees it. They come back and offer me 1 year, time served. And so I say, yes, of course, I'd already served the 1 year. And so I take the 1 year, time served, from facing life sentence to 1 year. Another blessing, right? Luck, whatever you want to call it. Good fortune. Get out, that was in 2008, close to the end of 2008. My mom was in prison during that year or two because I remember writing her while I was in prison, and or while I was in jail and she was in prison. End up getting out. 2009, I started changing things around a little bit, getting on Suboxone, trying to live a sober life. End up meeting another girl that I'd known when I was a kid. We end up dating for a while. We end up getting married in 2009. Started seeing my kids again. So life's starting to take a little bit of a change for me. Early 2010, I get pulled over on my way home from work. And then I see another cop car pull up, and then another one, and then another one. And I'm like, oh, that's never good. They come finally, pull me out of the car, arrest me. I'm like, what are you arresting me for? They're like, we have, indictments on you for trafficking cocaine. I was like, what? So I go to jail for the weekend. I bond out. My stepdad gets me out on a property bond. And come to find out, they had a couple of indictments on me from 2007. It had been 3 years. They had literally lost the case file. It had literally slipped through the cracks. And this was from 2007, where I had sold cocaine, and it was trafficking cocaine and sell or transfer of a simulated substance to undercover informants. And I knew exactly when they told me who it was, right? Like I knew. The first time, sold them several ounces of coke, and they kept asking for names. When I pulled up with the guy I was getting it from, they're like, "Is that him?" And they knew his name. "Oh, how do we meet him?" And they were asking all these weird questions that a 5-year-old could have suspected they were cops, right? And I'm like, these are really weird. So the next time they called, like a few days later, I told the girl I was dating, I was like, "Yeah, tell them I got it." Well, I just went to my closet at my granny's house and busted out a bunch of drywall, tore the brown off of it, put it in a bag, put it in a paper towel like it was when the other dude brought it to me. And then they walked up and I handed it to them, And then they pulled up and they didn't do anything. They didn't. So I knew right then they've busted me already, probably the first time, but this time they're not, like, if the police is the one paying for it, why am I going to give them real coke? I'd rather just give them drywall and take their money. So, and if they wasn't and I was doing it, that would have been wrong, but I was right about it, and they were cops, and they did. That is also a crime, sale or transfer of a simulated substance. If you're passing off a fake substance as real, it's still a crime. I think it's a misdemeanor. It's not a felony, but it's still a crime. They can still arrest you over it, which is crazy. Like, you ask me for coke and I sell you sugar, and then I'm still, it's still a crime. But anyway, so they arrest me for it. I get out on bond. At this point, like I said, I was doing pretty good in life, But where I was out on bond and I had no money for a lawyer, I start going down to Florida, to the pill mills down there, hitting those up, getting the oxys. And I wasn't doing them. I wasn't using any at this time. I just needed a lawyer and I needed money quick. Well, I resorted back to the one thing I know of how to get money fast, and that's the drug business. And so started going down to Florida, hitting as many as I could up within like that 3 or 4 month period. Got a chunk of money up, paid the lawyer, took the rest of the money and went some vacations. Took my kids to Hershey Park, I remember, to Myrtle Beach. Just went on some stuff like that. And then come time for sentencing, the judge was like, we asked for probation. This is my 3rd felony, right, of involving drugs too. And the judge was like, yeah, but prison is to rehabilitate somebody. He's already doing good. He's already got a job. He's, stable. And it's not his fault that we lost his file for 3 years. He should have been arrested for this 3 years ago. That's not his fault. I'm giving him probation, 5 years sentence for 5 years probation. That's 2010. A few months later, I get my kids for a weekend. My youngest son, who thankfully, he was 4 years old at the time, had snow white hair, snow white. So I could see right through, and he had a big gash on the top of his head, about an inch long. And I'm like, "Christopher, what happened to your hair?" And I'd already been fighting to try to get custody of them and stuff, because they'd already told me like that they had maggots in their refrigerator. They were living without water and electric part of the time. They, just not good living conditions for kids. But then every time we would get in front of the social worker, and I'd just be like, "Tell her what you're telling me." The social worker would be like, "You're coaching them. You're telling them what to say." I'm like, "No, I'm just telling them to tell you as a stranger, because you're a random person, to tell you what they had told me." And so anyways, it made me look like the bad guy, right? So then when I see the gash on his head, and I was like, "What happened?" He said that his stepdad, named Chris, was hit him in the head with a remote control and busted his head open. And so as much at the time I wanted, this is the same guy I'd pulled the gun on. This is the same guy I'd already fought. This is the same guy that was telling me he was my kid's dad. And this just almost sent me over the edge, right? Like, I really just wanted to end it for him then. But I didn't. I said, let me put my faith in the justice system one last time. So I go take him to the hospital and get it documented from a doctor. And then I go file an EPO on him at the police station. That immediately gave me rights to the kids, immediate protection from him. They couldn't be in his vicinity, so that gives me temporary custody of them. We go to court, and their real mom stands up and kind of tries to take up for her husband. He would never do this. And then the husband stands up and says, "Those are my kids." And he starts just acting belligerent. And the judge is like, "You're proven, like, I definitely think you did this. And let me be clear, they're not your kids, they're his. And I was like, finally. And the judge gave me custody of them at that moment with her having visitations. She showed up to a couple visitations, and then we never seen her again for years. And so I raised those boys myself. That was 2010. Got divorced in like 2012. Nothing really bad, really just like she wasn't a bad person, or I wasn't. We just really went our separate ways. We just weren't good together. I'm still kind of being sober. I'm starting to get into the car business, and I was doing really good there. I'm trying to make something out of my life as a single dad, you know. My mom and my stepdad still over here just, you know, my stepdad at the time she has then, they're over here dealing and selling stuff, and he got a big retirement from the military, so they were living comfortable either way. But I'm just trying to make it. And then when I did get the divorce, I moved in with them, with the two sons. And then there was some drama there. My stepdad's sister kicked us out of the house. And so me and my two sons slept in my truck for, you know, a few days there, just us. And I look back on these times now and I just smile because, you know, those were the hardships that formed who my kids and I am today. We slept in my truck. We end up getting an apartment through some help of like a charity agency. And we had our little apartment. And then come 2014, February, day after Valentine's Day, I just get the hair that I want to get high today. Like, no reason. I just want to get high today. Worked at the car lot all day. So I go get some heroin. I go grab a needle, shoot up, overdose right then. I'm sure it probably had fentanyl in it. And I had been messing with the fentanyl back in 2007 before anybody knew what it was. I remember getting a hold of some, and I knew it was dangerous. So when I got high again back on this time, I was reluctant. I even did a small amount, but it overdosed me, and they had to drag me into the snow and try to put snow on me and called the ambulance. Had to have a couple shots of Narcan. I'm still on probation from the one charge. So my probation officer finds out, and she says, "You're going to rehab." I said, "No, I'm not. I relapsed one time after years of being on Suboxone. Like, I'm not going to rehab." And she's like, "Yes, you are." And then she ends up saying, "You can either go to jail or rehab." Well, I chose rehab. The night before I was supposed to go turn myself into the rehab, I go and trip acid all night and then don't show up to rehab because I'm still tripping. And so then I was like, "I'll go tomorrow." And there was it had snowed like 14 inches. And so the rehab had even told me, like, "Hey, if you can't make it, we understand." So I was able to use that as an excuse of, well, I couldn't make it because of the snow. But then she puts me in jail for a couple weeks. And then I end up going. I was in rehab for 3 weeks. I get a call. My best friend, Nick, had overdosed and died. I asked the PO down there, "Hey, can I go to his funeral?" She's like, "Yeah, you got to fill out some travel paperwork, this or that." Well, I took that as meant as a yes. So on the day of his funeral, I signed myself out, go to his funeral. I speak at his funeral. And a few days later, I tell the director of the rehab, "Hey, thank you for letting me go to his funeral." He's like, "What? You didn't get permission to go to his funeral?" I said, "Yes, I did." He's like, "No, you didn't. You didn't sign a travel permit or nothing." I was like, "Oh." He calls the PO. She was like, "Well, you're on property restriction for a month." I was like, "Okay, I didn't know I did anything wrong." Well, we're there. I start going through the rehab. I'm there for 4 or 5 months, and then I still don't learn my lesson. One of my friends is about to sit down. I pull a chair out from under him. Director walks in, sees it. That's horseplay. That's a critical violation. And they kick me out of rehab. Been sober at this point 5 months. No Suboxone, no nothing. Completely sober. I call the probation officer at home. She hated me for some reason. "Hey, I got kicked out of rehab. They said I could come back in a week or 2 weeks. What do you want me to do? Go home. I'll see you Monday." I'm like, "Okay, well, surely she's not going to arrest me for horseplaying, right?" Go home that weekend. Monday, go to him. She handcuffs me immediately. "You're going to jail." Puts me in jail. She lets me sit in there for 2 months. 2 months for getting kicked out of rehab. While I was in there, I was on the top bunk, and I set up for chow one day real fast. And when I set up and threw my legs off the edge of the bunk, I fainted. And so I face planted. I've got a big scar somewhere right up here from it. Face planted from a top bunk, face passed out onto the concrete floor. Like, nobody tried to catch me or nothing. They just let me fall from it. Like, it was a wild scene. I remember seeing it on cameras. But I just remember waking up to my face hitting the floor, blood everywhere. The guards thought somebody had pushed me at first, and then we watched the camera. And, yeah. So I had to go get stitches for that while I'm in jail for this 2 months for doing nothing but horseplaying. I go back to rehab. This is in 2015 or 14. They start fast tracking me. December of then, I meet my now wife at an AA meeting. She was getting sober too. We met. We just kind of was like, hey, what, blah, blah, what's your name? And then she gives me her number and was like, hey, if you ever need a ride or anything, because the meeting place from the rehab was several miles away. And most of the time, if you didn't know somebody there, you had to walk. And every 5 weeks, you would have to have clients, like lower people in the program. You would have to take them to a meeting for 5 straight days. And there would be 3 or 4 of them. So it was hard to even get in a car. But that week I did. So I called her like the next day and was like, hey, would you care to give us a ride to a meeting? And she's like, sure. So she gave us a ride to the meeting. And, me and her just started hanging out. And she became like my best friend. She was somebody that I could hang out with, I could talk to, that wasn't a guy from the rehab, and somebody that could just, understand where I was coming from also, But I went back and I told the director, hey, I know you know who this girl is. I've been talking to her. And he was like, worst mistake of your life. Get away from her. She's trouble. She's going to get you in trouble. You'll relapse next. Everybody was telling me that you all can't make it. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, we're just friends. I'm just letting you all know. And we would hang out. The probation officers would see us and be like, you all can't be together. And I'm like, yes, we can. And it was just people tried to make it tough on us. And but I always thought I was just moving back home and that would be it. I really thought that, like, okay. And then it come time, I did move back home, and I was back home for a little bit. And then finally, I was like, hey, what would you think about moving to Richmond? And she was like, she was in drug court at the time. And she's like, let me ask drug court. And they were all for it. They're like, yeah, absolutely. We'd love for you to, move to Richmond and start a new life somewhere. So she did. And, ever since then, she's been up here. We've been like a team. We started working together. And, we've done a lot of speaking, to kids in high school and just wherever we can get the message out about, she come from a totally different background than I did. And she was a teacher, she has a master's degree and, totally different to me, who's just lived on the street my whole life, to that you can do whatever you want to do in life if you just, start making the right decisions, just doing the next right thing. It don't have to be, the greatest thing every day, just doing the next right thing. And, once I got back from the rehab, I got my kids, when I went to rehab, my grandmother and my mom took care of them. My mom was out during this time. They were technically living with my grandmother, but my mom lived there and down the street too, so they would kind of bounce around. And I hated that my kids are still kind of bouncing around, but I knew they were at least loved and they were taken care of. Because regardless of what my mom may or may not do, she was still going to love them, take care of them, make sure they were fed, had what they wanted, all of that. And so, yeah, my great-grandmother that helped raise me, she had ended up dying in 2011. So that's really too was my enabler. She's the one that made sure I had money and I always had to go to if things were looking down. And so her dying, then going to rehab and just having to do it on my own. There is nobody to get money from. There's nobody to help. There's nothing. When I came home from rehab, I had literally nothing, the clothes on my back, and I had saved a few dollars and was able to get a little bitty apartment, not much bigger than this room, and, saved enough money to get a little bigger apartment and got my kids back. And the 2 boys first were sharing a little bedroom and then ended up getting a bigger one. They both had their own room. And then me and my wife got a job at the place right now and, started making really good money there and started saving money, started investing money, started learning about the stock market and making money that way and having different ventures and different avenues to make money. And, then COVID happened and we had 2 boys in high school, at home every day. And we did that. And then after COVID, we got the kids through high school. The oldest one went to the Air Force. He's on his first deployment now, and I'm super proud of him. And the youngest one is, still trying to figure out life. And, who knows where they'll both end up. Like 2 years ago, then I get a call saying, "Oh, your mom, had an inside source that somebody wore a wire on my mom." And so I'm freak out there, I was like, "I need to meet you." My mom meets me at a gas station. I knew my mom had overdosed a few times over the last few years and was partying all the time at her apartment that I got her, and her apartment was in my name. So I would go in every now and then and be like, everybody needs to leave, but I never knew really. But then they're like, yeah, so my mom meets me. She's like, yeah, I've got like $35,000 cash on me and just bought a new Harley. And yeah, would you care to hold all of it for me? And I'm like, no. Where did I was totally clueless at this point. And a lot of it was because I wasn't going and visiting my mom enough and staying as close to her as I should have been. And I think some of it was just denial that I didn't want to see it. If it was out of sight, it was out of mind. But I should have known when she wasn't asking me for money all the time, or she wasn't needing a pack of cigarettes or anything. But yeah, she had found a huge meth dealer and was selling meth, and somebody had wore a wire on her. And, and so we heard first it was the new guy she was dating, because now her ex-husband that we got the manufacturing meth charge, he ended up dying a few years ago. And then her next husband ended up going to prison for selling pills in the last, whenever that was. And he ended up dying a few years ago too in prison. So both of my mom's last 2-3 relationships, they're all dead now. So then my mom meets this other guy who, the first time I met him at her apartment, I told him to get his shit and leave. You're out of here. This apartment's in my name, and I want you out of here. But then I put a camera up in her apartment to where I could see it from my phone, and I would see them like kids. You would see her open the door, and you could see the top of his head where he would be crawling army style to get into her apartment under the camera. And I'm like, what are they doing? Like, they're acting like teenagers, And it was the only thing I knew to do. And finally, I just took the camera out and was like, fuck it. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, he's going to keep coming back every day if she wants him there, right? This is my mom who's 63 years old almost. Like, this is, she was 60 acting like this. But, I just always have taken care of her when she couldn't take care of me. And, but they did end up arresting her. She was horrible. The day she went to court from being arrested, she couldn't even walk into the courtroom. She was that bad from withdrawals. But from that day, she turned it around. She started going to AA. The judge let her out. She started working a program. She started just doing everything she could to be better. And I think my mom's been sober 2.5 years now, probably. She's in prison down in Texas. A few months ago, she almost died. She aspirated in her sleep and went without oxygen for a long time. They called me, didn't know if she was going to live or not. They had her on life support, but she made it through that. And hopefully, in the next few months or years, she'll get to come home and continue, being an amazing person. I'm happy for her that she's sober, and I really think that she's going to make it this time. And, there's still so many of my family members out there. I've lost, so many of my best friends from overdosing or whatever else. And I got so many family members still out there, getting high and living this life. And so hopefully that through seeing this, they can see that, if I can make it out and I can do anything productive in this world, if I can meet a good wife and own a new vehicle and a new house, and those aren't things that define me at all. Like, those are the least things that I feel like define who I am today, is the fact that I can buy a new house and a truck and material things, but it's the things that I do for other people and the things I do to try to help others and just be a kind human and stand for what's right and have the courage today to stand up for what's wrong, because a lot of people can stand up for what's right, but they don't have the courage to stand up against what's wrong. But to be a good dad today, and then even not long ago, I guess it's been a year or so ago now, like I told you in the beginning, I always thought the person's name I was born with was my real dad. I did a DNA test through 23andMe about 2 years ago, thinking my wife I bought her one for Christmas. And so I essentially grew up without a dad my whole life. Bought my wife one, bought myself one. I do it. A few months later, we're on the way to work. Results come back, and she's like, "Oh, you've got a brother." I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, his name's Charles. You got a brother." I was like, "Oh." So I'm thinking the guy who I thought was my real dad had another son somewhere that I didn't know about or whatever. And I'm like, "Well, that's weird." And it's like, "Yeah, and it says you have a niece too." And I was like, "What?" I was like, this can't be, well, something's up. So I message them, and my niece messages me back and was like, hey, I think you should talk to my mom. I don't want to get into this. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Her mom messages me. Her name's Carrie. And she was like, hey, the Charles that's your brother, that's my brother. And your niece, that's my daughter. So that I'm your sister. And we have the same dad, and his name's Gary. And I was like, what? And so come to find out, I found out who my real dad was after 40 years. He did live in Richmond, and he did know my mom for a short period of time but he ended up graduating college and took a job out in California. And so I have 2 other brothers and 2 other sisters that are out in Colorado and St. Louis. I've got a sister that's 45, and I've got a brother that's 21. So that's huge age gap, right? But I've not met my dad in person yet. I have met one of my sisters in person, but I've talked to my dad on the phone a bunch of times right after I found out, and he found out about me. He never knew about me. So that was always like, did he know about me? But my mom confirmed too, he didn't know about you. Right after we got together, he left. I never seen him again. So I wasn't able to tell him about you either. But yeah, he never knew anything about me. And then when he did find out, he called me, and we've built a relationship that's super awesome today. And I do plan on going out there really soon to meet him and continue building a relationship with him, because after, 40 years without a dad, and, having that, trying to be the best dad I can be, but having that one thing that you really are always missing in life, and that was a dad for me. And so I found it, and I feel like that was because I was doing the right thing. I was trying to be a better person. If I was out here shooting up opiates and cocaine, what's the chance I would have went and bought a 23andMe DNA test to send that in, right, Ian? Like, pretty rare, right? And so yeah, I found that, and I found a dad, and he's amazing. He's there for advice. He's there when I need him. He's there for whatever I need. And it feels really good to have that, and to have an amazing wife who I get to work with every day, and we get, I get to laugh with her. We get to come on trips and just live life, and we don't have to be millionaires to just be good people and live life. And I really appreciate you having me on to, just to try to spread the message, really, that kindness and just being kind to other people will get you farther than life, I feel like, than almost anything, as long as you put a little bit of effort, a little bit of work behind that. And who knows, if you're out there without a dad, you might find yours too,
Do you hold resentment towards your mom for your upbringing? Because
So-
I feel like you could have avoided so much pain and suffering.
100%. I could have, if my mom would have been different, I could have avoided probably a lot of it, I used to blame her for a lot of it. If you didn't do this, if you wasn't this kind of mom, if you was a normal mom, then, I wouldn't have had to deal with, a lot of this stuff. But now I don't really. It's like when I found out who my dad was, do I blame my mom? Did my mom know who my real dad was this whole time, 40 years, and she never thought to speak up and be like, hey, just so you know, I should be honest with you now. Let me be honest with you and tell you who your dad is, right? But I don't know even if she knew at the time. She was 21, I'm not sure if she was scared. And I just look at, people act differently in those, in fearful situations. And so today I don't hold any resentment. I love her, and I'm just, she's always been like my best friend. And today I'm just glad that, I can be there for her, and that I feel like she done her best with what she had and what she felt like was her best. I felt like, that she made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I don't think any of it was really with any ill intent or to try to hurt me. I think it was more of just a lot of the line was I wanted to get high. I wanted to, use her for her money and her drugs, and she just enabled that. Not saying it's right, but, a lot of the time I would have stole from her, which I did many times. The amount of times I would go while she was asleep and reach in her pillowcase and steal her pills out of it, because she would have to hide them from me so I wouldn't steal them. And I would even steal them even though she was hiding them under her head in a pillowcase. And, you know, it was either me go steal from her and get them or me go out and steal from somebody else and get them. So I figure like she just thought that her giving it to me or giving me the money or the drugs was just the safer option rather than me out here stealing from God knows who and possibly getting killed. So I feel like even though it doesn't make it right, that she always had a justification there that in some weird way made sense to her. And so I don't hold any resentment for her today. Like, you know, her getting sober over the last couple of years was everything I could have ever asked for and more, you know, like that's knowing that she may have more time to live and be a grandma to my kids and maybe even see one of them have kids and to my brother's kids. Like that's, you know, that's all I could ask for from her. Like her just, not show up at my house at 3 o'clock in the morning, beating on my windows, yelling, you know, stealing money from me or, you know, needing money for drugs. Like if she can just not do that anymore, I'll be perfectly happy with how she finishes her life out, you know, and she, you know, and for her to hopefully have a good relationship, you know, she's still got another brother and sister here that love her and my granny's still alive. And, you know, I just want her to come home and continue working on the relationships with those people and the people that love her and show them that she's changed and that she can be a good sister and a good person, you know. And that all happens through action, I feel like, you know, we can all say whatever we want, but, you know, we prove things with actions. You know, that's why they say action speaks louder than words, you know. That's just the way life is. People want to see you do it, walk the walk, not talk the talk. So yeah, I don't resent her. I love her too much now and she is too good of a person to be mad at her for things that, you know, she could or couldn't control. To me, it's irrelevant at this point.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, I appreciate you coming back out here a second time, man, to sit down with me and do this.
No, man, it's my pleasure. I'm just thankful that you were willing to have somebody like me come on, man.
Of course. Well, I knew you were a great storyteller the first time. You're even better the second time.
Oh,
so.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been nervous all week thinking about how it
you
would
couldn't
go.
even tell, Johnny.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you do an amazing job here. So just being able to come on and tell my story, it means everything.
And you got to experience the new lighting in the room, too.
For sure. Yeah, get to see it all new.
We were messing around with it. You were our guinea pig.
Right.
Trying to,
for sure.
you know, like improve the show in any which way possible. In every which way possible, you know?
Right, and it's little tweaks here and there, just little things, you know, like it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to go buy $1 million studio and go from this to that. It can be little things and gradual steps along the way. So that's why they say, you know, the tortoise wins the race. He's just slowly growing, slowly getting along to the finish line. You know, you don't have to go from start to finish in one step.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you got to take your own advice, though. Remember, you
right? No, I've got 100%. I feel like I need to be at the finish line in one step, and that's, you know, sometimes you got to say things out loud to others before you can, you know, like you said, take your own advice. That's why I've got to do that for sure.
I'm the same way, Johnny. Don't worry.
And if anything's wrong along the way, you feel like a failure, you know, and that fear of failure, I always tell people, is one of my biggest fears. Fear of confrontation, fear of failure, you know, fear of change, you know. And you don't have to learn to those don't never have to not be a fear at all, but you still have to learn to get through them when it does arise. So it's something I continue to work on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.